Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Sarah Crilley and joined in studio today with Bryan Potts. He is the owner of JDog here in Keller. We just met through the Keller Chamber. Fantastic speaker, by the way.
Thank you.
I just loved your talk. You're so passionate, and thank you for your service. You're a veteran of the Army, and I just really appreciate what you've done to serve our country. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Let's talk about your story, and now with JDog, but you had a background in our armed forces, and you've traveled quite a bit. So let's unpack it all. And I met your beautiful wife, and you have a sweet, adorable grandson, and so many things happening. And just absolutely love your integrity and honor and commitment to our residents. What areas do you serve?
Okay, so as far as service areas, we're a franchise, so we have certain zip codes that we do. But of course, it's much easier to go by the cities. So, of course, we do Keller, which is where we're based out of. And then we'll go over to North Richland Hills, Colleyville, Grapevine. We'll head up towards Flower Mound and then swing down just below Lantana over to Justin, and then go down to Hazlitt, Alliance, and then, of course, all the cities in between. So Roanoke, Trophy Club, Northlake, Southlake, Westlake.
Awesome. That must keep you so busy.
It does. It does. It's a great area.
Unpack a little bit about JDog and how you serve your areas here, and then we'll talk about your military background and some of your stories.
Well, we've got four main, what I call business lines within JDog. So we'll do the junk removal, we'll do demolition, we'll do hauling, and then also labor services.
Bryan, do people have a lot of junk? They got a lot of junk they have to get rid
Never.
of. Never. Not at all.
I just work for nothing. No,
Do they call you panicked? Like, hey, I've got this mattress. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, how much junk are we talking that is worth your time to remove for people?
We'll do anything from single item pickups all the way through full clean outs, whether it's business or residential. So it really doesn't matter.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that you know, everything from the mattress, what do I do with this? And now you're throwing out your back, trying to figure it out, but JDog's got your back, literally.
Exactly.
All right, so share with me the JDog story. This is your business that you run here in Keller and the surrounding areas. You got a team behind you?
So, of course, after we got out of the military, did a few other things, and then actually got a email from a recruiter saying, hey, have you thought about getting into franchising? Well, of course we had, because, my wife and I, we want to be our own bosses. But what we decided was that, every franchise we'd run into is way too much to get into.
A lot of steps and...
Yeah, steps and financial backing and everything. I mean, you already have to have a lot of money in order to get into most franchises, which are going to make you money. With JDog, it was very down-to-earth approach that they took throughout the process where we were vetting them and they were vetting us. It was very smooth, calm. There wasn't like any rush into it. Trish and I were actually going to go up to Maryland again. And then we decided to stay back down here once they told us that there was a JDog already operating that was looking to sell. So we love this community. This is where we've been for the past 7 years. And so that's where we decided to stay.
All right. And JDog is veteran owned and operated?
That's correct.
All right. Tell me more.
So right now we've got all four, I know there's six, but I still consider four armed services. So we've got somebody with the Army, which is me. We've got a Marine, which is our operations manager, and then two of our drivers. One's Navy, and then the other one was Air Force.
That's amazing. Shout out to the team. Thank you for your service, and of course, being a part of the JDog team. That's just so wonderful. I mean, I'll tell you from the perspective of, trying to unload things and junk removal, you want to make sure that someone you can trust is coming into your home and, doing that service, performing that service. You got kids and so much going on, and your company, and it's a little family run company there that operates with integrity and safety first.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that we look at is, of course, our company values. So ours are respect, integrity, and trust. And I mean, I basically boil it down to, I don't want anyone coming into my home with my wife and my grandson that I can't trust. So I make for sure that that's part of the hiring process, and that Trish is also involved in it, not just as an owner, but as another perspective to where she can kind of look at it from that point of view a little bit better than I can.
All right, share with me some of your stories. And I know you've done a lot of traveling. What was life like with the armed service and with the Army? And what made you choose the Army, first of all?
Well, to answer the first question, which was how was it? It was awesome. I mean, it was just the best thing that I could have done, and I don't regret a single day of it. As far as why the Army, my dad was Army, his dad was Army. I mean, I knew that I was going to be in the Army since I was 10 years old. Obviously, I just said something about being generational, but doing that, I went ahead and signed up, and I went off basic training a week after graduation.
And how old were you?
18.
You're 18?
Yep, 18. And all the places they send me to Germany.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Right away.
Yeah. And it was a good time. I ended up spending 4 years over there, and then ended up going to like Fort Lewis, Washington for a couple years. Got to be a squad leader there.
Amazing.
I was a combat engineer at the time, which the story behind that is my dad was an infantryman. He told me, and I won't get into explicitives, but nicely, if I became an infantryman, he would beat me up. How's that?
Right.
And I knew he wasn't
gentle
kidding.
Guidance on what he wanted for his son.
and I knew he wasn't kidding. And I was like, okay. So I went and did the next best thing. I became a combat engineer, which is an infantryman with a shovel and explosives. So we both got what we wanted in a way, kind of.
Yes.
So I ended up doing that for a little bit over 10 years. Then I applied to officer candidate school, became an officer. My first specialty, anyone that knows everybody's favorite guy, is a chemo. So I got to be a chemical officer.
Wow. What is a chemical officer? You got to break this down for me.
Okay. So what we do is we specialize in defensive tactics concerning chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear warfare.
Wow. So, and again, boot camp is the training that you get to join the military, whatever branch, and then you have specialized trainings that you go to, and then to be an officer, you get a degree?
Well, since I was coming in through the military or from the enlisted side, I didn't have to have a degree yet. I had to have at that time 90 semester hours that could be taken towards a degree.
And that's on top of working, right? So you're
Correct.
working and taking those classes.
Yeah.
What was that
like? Sometimes you just get to that duty station where there's nothing to do. And I was at that duty station, so I ended up just taking a course every chance that I could.
Fantastic. What a great attitude to have.
So I had great squad leaders in the beginning that instilled the right things. I joined the Army so that I didn't have to go to college. And then, of course, I ended up going and ended up, doing the whole step ladder all the way through a master's degree. So.
Wow. That's fantastic. Okay, so share with me a little bit more about that job.
Okay.
The chemical...
Yeah, as a chemical officer.
Officer, yes.
Yep. I was able to work basically staff jobs. It was just keeping a whole battalion trained.
Wow.
And supplied with the equipment and the knowledge that they'd need. And of course, right after I graduated, because you got to go through school for that as well. Right after I graduated from the chemical officer basic course, I got assigned to the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. They were at Fort Carson at the time, and 3 weeks later, we ended up going over to Iraq. So
wow.
We followed the 3rd ID into Iraq and then went over into the Al Anbar province along the Syrian border, and that's where I spent the next year.
Wow. What was that like? When you got that call and you realized that's where you're going, what was your first thought?
Since I got there and the unit already knew that they were going, and I only had that 3 weeks, it was just no time to really think. Mm-hmm. You just have to get all your stuff together, have to get your knowledge together, and just go. I mean, I'd already been prepping for it for years and years and years, mentally, because, I joined the Army. I figured I'd be going to war at some point in time, so it just kind of happened.
And this was the time, and this was your call.
Yep.
So share with me some of the values that the military taught you that you are able to bring into your daily life. And there's nothing like the military and the team camaraderie and serving your country. And it's amazing values that you can bring into, and that's why I always work with service members. I mean, I'm telling you, like, there's nothing like the reliability and the get it done attitude, and that they're always going to put their customers first. And that's just like putting our brothers and sisters first through the military. So I really appreciate that. Share with me a little bit more about that mindset that's taught through the military that you carry on through your business, you know, the way that you treat your friends and family.
Okay. A lot of it deals with, and honestly, I learned more from the people that I didn't want to be like than I did from the people that I emulated. So as far as values and everything, the Army is very good at instilling it. In fact, like everything else, we've got an acronym for it. In this case, it was leadership: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage, which, if you listen to that, a lot of the whole respect, integrity, trust, 2 out of the 3 comes directly from that. So they instilled that in me, you know, from the very start. And as far as the camaraderie, I mean, there's really nothing like it. It just, sorry, I get overwhelmed. It's just so awesome. I don't know how to really explain it, because especially after you go through, you know, a deployment with individuals, you've got so much camaraderie, and there's so many things that go unsaid that don't have to be said. Just the love and the care that you have for your fellow soldier and everything. And you know, I was fortunate enough to come in as a private, you know, very bottom echelon in the military, and work my way up. And a lot of people, I was like a lot of them, you know, they don't like taking orders. I don't like taking orders. So instead of bucking the system, I went with the system, figured out what I needed to do to get promoted, and started being the one giving orders, whether it was as a non-commissioned officer or later on as an officer. I had one ground rule that I never ever broke, and it was my own rule. And it was, as I'm climbing up the ladder, I'm going to climb it as fast as I can, but I'm never going to step on anyone. I never used anyone as, you know, any type of rung in my ladder. I couldn't do that. I didn't want to send anyone down while I'm trying to climb up. So I learned through watching other great leaders, grab those around you, bring them with you. You know, in the military, one of the things that we're always taught is you're expendable. And that sounds like such a harsh lesson, but it's really not. When you learn that you're expendable, what you start doing is you start caring more about the other people around you. And through doing that, one of the things that you do is you end up trying to find that person that's going to replace you. And you train them and you bring them up to your level, so that when you're ready to move up, you've got that person moving into your spot, and there's no issues. There's no, you know, lost communication. There's no gap for the individuals that they're now in charge of. And I really took a bottom up approach to it. I learned a lot from the leaders that, well, sucked. They were terrible. And what I did later on is, when I got to those positions, I did the exact opposite of them. I had a very good career. I enjoyed it. I don't know what else to say. It's just,
you don't have
I love
to.
it.
Brian, thank you so much, because you are so passionate and sharing your heart with us. What was it like transitioning out of the military and into civilian life, and when you made that decision?
Okay. Well, I had just done a little bit over 21 years, and it just was time.
It was time.
You know, things were starting to change a little bit with me, with the Army. And the one thing that I didn't want to do was get out after I started not liking the Army, because I didn't want that to ever happen. So I figured after 21 years, I was going to go ahead and put in my retirement paperwork. I put it in for and was granted my retirement on exactly my 22nd year. So it was just special for me, June 1st, 1992, Private Potts goes off, I had hair probably as long as yours, but a lot worse haircut. Good old 90s kid. And then, I came back, and May 1st, 2014, exactly 22 years later, just a full-grown kid, really. One of the last generals that we had in charge of us, he used to always ask, because I worked at the 20th Seaburn Command, and he'd ask everyone, it didn't matter who it was, when you got to the unit, you had to stand up and introduce yourself. And he always asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And people be like, what? And he'd be like, look, you're still in. You're still a kid. You get out, you got to grow up. What do you want to be when you grow up? And at that point in time, I really didn't have the answer, because I was still several years from hitting that spot. But yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that with me, Bryan. I just, to go from 22 years and now climb a new mountain, and you married your high school sweetheart in the meantime.
Yeah.
And now you're working together.
That is a story for a whole nother thing. And that might actually make you cry and go, ooh, a few times. But yeah, I saw Trish for the first time in 1988, my first week of high school. And I turned around and she was walking down the hallway, and my jaw dropped. I mean, she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And I'm going to go back home tonight and look at her and think the exact same thing. Aww. She is an awesome woman.
You're making me cry. I love it. I love it. And how is it like working together, husband and wife, dynamic duo team, JDog, here, Keller area?
Actually, it works out really well.
Of course.
Partners
in life, partners in business.
Partners in crime?
Partners in crime. Legal crimes.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I feel like it's a crime with how much coffee I drink. So.
No, I get that.
When we met at Chai 4 and everybody's got the different chais, shout out to Chai 4. And I was like, this is like, I have 4 cups of coffee a day, but this is my chai in the morning. So it kind of feels like coffee, espresso, all of the things. But, your wife was watching you speak, and it was just so sweet, because I see how much love and and admiration you have for each other. And it's just so special. I work with my family company, and so it's very, very special. And, to have family gatherings, and it's just it's a special time to be able to talk about things at work, because it doesn't feel like work. It is work. Mm-hmm. But you were kind of like sharing success stories and things that we all did that week, and there's nothing like it. You could just break bread over the dinner table and talk about what worked, what didn't work, and celebrate together.
No, exactly.
As a family. Okay, so Bryan, we're going to come back, and when we do, we're going to talk about kind of a trending news story that caught my attention, and I know you're the expert in junk removal, but what do you think about space junk? When we come back, we're going to have all the hot takes here with our junk removal expert, Bryan. This show is brought to you by Real News Communications Network, your digital destination for video podcasts, produced by media and podcast experts. And we're back. All right, so the space industry, this is straight from spacenews.com, is undeterred by congestion and debris. What is it all about, this space junk removal, and why is it important? So here in Washington, more than 6,000 satellites are orbiting the Earth. 33,000 are projected to launch over the next decade. So, to my understanding, satellites, right, they go out there, and they're like monitoring things. That's what the satellites do. I'm just kind of paraphrasing here. So there are tens of thousands of inactive objects, or space junk, requiring satellites today to have to maneuver through crowded debris fields. so interesting. So this is kind of going on and on and on about the space industry that does not expect the growth to be dampened by the congestion or the doom and gloom narrative. Because all I'm thinking now is like, there's space junk everywhere. What are we gonna do? Like, so it's just so fascinating to me to kind of like read that and wonder, how are they gonna remove this debris? How far is it gonna go? Could this impact us on Earth? What are your thoughts? Your hot take?
Nobody's consulted me on this yet, which might be a good thing because we don't have transportation to get out there, but our service is out of this world.
I love it, Bryan.
I think the biggest thing with all this is it's going to come down to cost. I mean, really, that's what most things do, or most things do come down to cost, but that's really what it's going to be. Space junk is an issue. Some of the smaller items, as they orbit the Earth and everything, and they get pulled into our gravitational field, they're going to go ahead and burn up. But what about the larger objects, or maybe the metals that are a little bit more dense and will go ahead and start turn molten as they're burning in? But then as soon as they get through that part of the atmosphere where there's all the friction and everything, are they going to solidify up again, and now they're just a projectile falling out of the sky?
Oh my gosh.
There, I added some
some
new
context
ideas to you.
Well, I think that this is something to really kind of keep an eye on. And I would agree, you have out of this world service with JDog. What are some things that we can focus on here on Earth in terms of the junk removal, and maybe some cautionary tales, if you will, of people that are trying to do it themselves and dumping and all of the things that they shouldn't be doing, and why to hire JDog?
Okay. Well, I think one of the biggest reasons to hire JDog is the reasons that you've already stated. If a customer does it on their own, they do, are they physically capable of getting that item, not just out of the house and to the curb for somebody, but safely out of the house and to the curb? Are they going to end up dinging their walls as they're trying to get a refrigerator from upstairs to downstairs, and then having to pay the repair costs for all that stuff?
And doing it safely. And also, when we're thinking about even to tie into the space junk, what does this do to the environment if you're not dumping safely, and what you're doing with it? I know that can be a major problem. People are just throwing stuff everywhere. It's not going to impact me. It's not going to impact me. How does this impact our environment, Bryan?
A lot of the items that are getting dumped, the reason why we're putting them in the landfill is because they don't decompose quickly. So a lot of them aren't organic based type items, and even the ones that are organic based, they might be long lived. So they need to be dumped in an appropriate place so that the ground is already prepared, not just like packed down and everything, but usually a lot of these landfills have various layers of plastics and stuff like that to contain any leaking items. So for example, mercury. We all know mercury is a big no-no, but mercury's in a lot of items that people don't think about, a lot of the older light bulbs and such. So we want to make for sure that those aren't going to the landfill, or worse, getting just thrown off on the side of the road, because that some landfills won't take them.
Interesting.
And, so if you're just trashing them on the side of the road, you don't have to deal with it, but somebody's eventually going to have to deal with it. And, how does that end up, once again, coming back to cost? It might not affect you today, but if you've got a spot, down at the bottom of a ravine where there's lots and lots and lots of, say, tires and mattresses and everything go, somebody's going to have to go out there and pick it up at some point in time. And it's probably going to be the city or county that ends up sucking up that bill. But who ultimately ends up paying for that?
Exactly. So share with me here in closing just some tips on some of those household items, of how to safely dispose of those, and some of the things that we may not think about hiring a junk removal service company to handle for us, but what you guys do. Let's start with batteries. What do you do with batteries?
Okay.
Can I just stick them in the trash?
No. Batteries, depending on what
like
type
the AA's that my kid's done with the toy?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not going to end up actually going through each toy or whatever, but if we do find like batteries in a dresser drawer or whatever, as we're doing a clean out, then we do separate those.
And why is that important?
Well, just because, once again, the materials that they're made of, and I'm not going to say I'm a battery expert, I just know that some of the materials are recyclable, some of the materials are hazardous. And you can do stuff like take them over to, I think Best Buy has a program. And I know like some of the lithium batteries, the Home Depots, you can go ahead and take those over there, and they've got a little spot near the entrance so you can drop them off there.
Fantastic tip there. I had no idea. Yeah, sometimes I'll just like stick it in a plastic bag, tie it up, and then try not to think about it again. I hope I'm doing this right. But no, that's so helpful. I can just collect them and send them off to the battery disposal little thing in the Home Depot. That's so awesome. Okay, so what are some of those items that the city's not going to pick up that we're putting on the side of the road, and you may not know what to dispose of that would
Mattresses.
be mattresses. Got it.
Mattresses are probably our number one thing. So mattresses are a pain in the butt. They're light enough that you can usually take 1 to 2 people to put them in. They're small enough that you might be able to use your smaller truck or whatever to get them over to the dump. The thing is, now you're taking your time to get them over to the dump. You're taking your labor to get them over there. And you're also risking the chance of getting a flat tire. So that's one of the things that people don't think about, taking stuff to the dump. The dump's the dump, unfortunately. So what you can do is go ahead and hire JDog to take care of it.
Yes.
And we'll do 2 things for you. Number one, we'll take the risk of the back injury. We'll take the transportation. But also, we're not going to put it in the landfill. We've got a recycler that'll come out and pick up our mattresses, and they take them back, and they strip them down, and they recycle all the material.
Oh, fantastic.
And put new mattresses together.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing. To make recycled mattresses.
Exactly.
What a great cause.
And as an individual, it's not profitable for the company, obviously, to do it on an individual basis. But, we call them up when we get 30 or 40 mattresses that we've stored, and they come out and pick them up. I'm
going to give you a nightmare situation. Bed bugs. Do you really have to dispose of everything? And is that something JDog handles? Like, don't bed bugs get in everything? Like,
yes,
what happens?
They do.
What are some other things that can happen that maybe gas leaks, or what are some hazardous, I guess, situations where you need to dispose of everything, and what do you do?
Well, definitely the bed bug scenario. I mean, that's unfortunately bed bugs get into everything once they've started.
Even the carpet, the fabric of the carpet.
Exactly.
So then you're ripping up the carpet. What do we do with the carpet?
Well, not just that, all your clothes. Think about your suitcases.
Yeah.
All the little seams and everything. Yeah. They're able to get up in there and lay eggs and go dormant until you end up going on a trip to wherever, and now you're waking them up because they can sense the heat, and now you've spread the problem somewhere else.
Nightmare! Oh my gosh. Lice. What about lice?
Lice actually not as bad because they tend to stay more focused on the head and body areas.
So I don't need to get rid of everything if my kid comes home with lice. I just need to watch it.
No, definitely. And with bed bugs, you also need to get a pest control.
Okay.
But with lice as well.
So important. And I'm sure that you're no stranger to dealing with those calls. What do I do? Do I need to dump everything?
No, exactly. And we make for sure that, number one, we're trying to keep the individual that's going through the situation as calm as possible and reassure them that, no matter what, we're going to help them get this situation taken care of. That's one of the unfortunate parts of this job is we deal with a lot of people not having the best time of their life right now.
Life changes.
Yeah. Life-changing events, whether it's, finding out that your kid is drug home bed bugs or, the loss of a loved one.
The loss of a loved one. What do I do with this stuff?
Exactly.
And nobody wants to take it, and then it's overwhelming, and you're going through, these really emotional times, and then difficult to even look at some of those items. And so JDog's there during that time as well. Yeah,
and the last thing that people want to hear is, well, your loved one's stuff is going to the dump.
Yeah.
So what we do is we make for sure that we take care of those individuals during that time. I mean, we've all lost somebody, so I just make sure that the crews understand that, think about that for a minute and how you felt. Now, place that on the customer and know that that's how they feel. And, we handle everything with the utmost respect as we're taking it out. We're not just hucking, grandma's dressers and stuff into the back of a trailer. We're placing them. We're making sure that everything that we can gets donated, so that, the customer knows that we're not just, like I said, taking it to dump to get rid of it or anything. We're trying to salvage that stuff so that somebody else can enjoy it and kind of keep their traditions or, their thoughts, their memories, moving on to somebody else. And somebody else might not know what they ended up picking up at a donation site or whatever. They don't know the backstory to it, but at least the customer knows that, somebody else is getting a good use out of it.
So much empathy there, and that those items aren't just sitting in a landfill. I love that. In closing here, what about storage units? How many of us do have storage units that they're wasting money away? JDog just kept taking all. I don't even need it. Why am I spending this $400 every month on a storage unit
So
I'm never going to go through again?
We'll save you by you coming to us and doing it in the long term, at least. But yeah, we're storage units, just about anything.
Are we pack rats, Bryan? Do people have too much stuff in general?
Yes.
Are we living for our things?
I think in a lot of cases we are. I mean, myself included. I need to hire myself for my garage. And Trish will be the first to tell you that. And I'm terrible about it. I recycle at home just like we do at work. And I bring my aluminum cans and scrap metal from the house, put it in my scrap metal bins in the yard, so that we can recycle it later on. Is it really earning me anything? No, it doesn't. But the thing is that it's the whole idea of the recycling. It's not to make a profit or anything. It's to not have stuff going into landfills. It's to have stuff being reused.
Wow, Bryan. So many important messages in this episode. Thank you so much for joining Talk of the Town and being the talk of the town, because you really are with JDog and your beautiful wife and family. And just really appreciate you coming in. We'll have to have you back.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm definitely willing to come back.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on Talk of the Town. Go ahead and check them out, and we'll see you guys next time. This show is brought to you by Real News Communications Network, your digital destination for video podcasts, produced by media and podcast experts. Podcasting at the speed of news, powered by Real News PR. Visit realnewscn.com for our podcast show library and launchashow.com to do just that, launch a show.